Hello, everybody. I hope you can hear me. I all of a sudden, at the last second, started having some kind of audio problem. Let me look here real quick. Check my audio. Yes, you can hear me. Okay. That's all I wanted to make sure is that I'm loud and clear out here. uh, I had my headphones all set up, but something happened and they decided to discontinue functioning. But that's okay. Since I don't have Melody here, I usually wear the headphones because sometimes when Melody and I are on here together, I get like a little feedback from, we each get a little feedback from the other. But since it's just me, at least right at the moment, Melody at the last moment had to back out. Uh, she has trouble with her hip and pain, and the doctor changed her pain medication, and she's not feeling real good this morning. So we are going to have to just do with me. Now, you know that my main area of knowledge is Star Trek. Besides my employment, I wish I could work in Star Trek. That'd be fun. But I also know a lot about Battlestar Galactica. So there are connections. Ron Moore and some of the actors, have done both shows. So I have also been a fan of Battlestar. What you see behind me is they don't call it the bridge, they call it operations or something like that, but basically that's what you have behind me here is from the 2005 series. Now I tried finding backgrounds from the 1978 series, but I only found one on the interior of the ship, and I didn't remember ever seeing that. So let me show you. Hang on just a second. I have to do a couple of things. Now, they had this listed as a background from the 1978 show. I don't recall this. Maybe it was there. I mean, it's been a long time since I watched that show, but I don't recall this. And it seemed to have a disagreement with my headphones when I was wearing them. So I switched off of that one and back to this one. So I'm going to leave this one set up because this one seems to work better. Oh, I got a new shirt and I want to show you here. See, it's a Aliens. It's from a company called Liquid Blue. If you ever want to buy a very good quality, thick, well-made shirt, Liquid Blue is a really nice. They have Pink Floyd, Grateful Dead, a lot of different psychedelic shirts and tie dye and Aliens, American flag, a lot of good shirts. So check them out. They have their own website. You can buy stuff on Amazon, but I'm starting to have problems with Amazon. I'll tell you why. Is I'll get on there and I'll buy something that's supposed to be a certain brand. For instance, Liquid Blue. And I have bought items on there that are listed as Liquid Blue, and they show a picture that came from the Liquid Blue website. But when I get it, it's something altogether different. It has a similar image on it, but it's not made by Liquid Blue, and it's certainly not the quality of a Liquid Blue shirt, but they're charging me a Liquid Blue price. So watch it. This has happened to me 3 times in the last year where I've bought something that purported to be a certain thing, but came when I got it, it wasn't that. I bought some Wrangler jeans off of there, and they were something else, some other off brand that were not very well made. It had the oddest thing. It had the zipper and it zipped on the wrong side or so. It was very odd. Very odd. But anyway, no, that was a jacket, I think, that did that. I mean, a zipper on a pair of pants is going to just zip the way it zips. But anyway, so I've had some trouble. So watch it if you buy on Amazon, which almost everybody does. Let's see what's going on this week. I had to replace the brake light in my Lexus. Did that this morning. It was pretty easy. I mean, I got to say, some of the cars are pretty difficult. This was only one screw. Thing pulled right out, replaced the bulb. I'm done in 5 minutes. They wanted $157 to do the same job at Lexus. Craziness. I mean, I ain't paying $157 for 5 minutes of work. I mean, what are they charging per hour? I mean, you're talking like $3,000 an hour. That's crazy. And let's see here. Today's Easter. Happy Easter, everybody. We had a nice Easter. My granddaughter went to church. I need to start going more to church. As the older I get, the more I think I ought to go to church. Because I figure one of these days I'm going to have to answer for things. So I better start going to church. Since I lost my wife, I want to be with her when everything's said and done. So got to be good. But anyway, all right, we'll get off of that. Talking about Battlestar Galactica. Now, the Glenn Larson did the original series in 1978. It was done again in 2005, basically by Ron Moore of Star Trek fame. He did an excellent job. I am a much bigger fan of the Ron Moore Battlestar Galactica than I am the Glenn Larson Battlestar Galactica. Now, what happened on the 1978 Battlestar is that the money got tight. And you had launch sequences, and you'll know what I'm talking about if you ever watched the show. They had launch sequences from the pilot that got used in almost every episode of Battlestar, the 78 Battlestar. They showed the same pilot, the same ship, the same shoom, and everything. And, people that watch the show, especially nowadays, I mean, back, when there were commercials and people were getting up, getting Fritos and soda pop and something, and maybe they didn't see that every time. But people now pretty much stay locked on the screen and they watch it because they can pause it and come back and pick right back up so they don't miss stuff like they used to. So you can't get away with doing stuff like that. And it really detracted from the show when they did that. And I'm sure a lot of you that watch the show know what I'm talking about. I didn't see much of, I'm sure there was some of that on the 2005 show. They reused things, Star Trek. That scene of Lursa and Bator's ship blowing up, their bird of prey blowing up. They reused that. I don't know how many episodes of Star Trek. They reused that same scene of that ship blowing up. So, in fact, it might have been General Chang's ship originally. Then they reused it for Lursa and Bator, and then I think it must have been used 5 or 6 times. That same scene. So you'll see that. Sometimes they'll take it and they'll flip it. If there's no text for you to read, or even sometimes if there is, they'll flip it. And so it looks a little different next time you see it. So, they all do it. But the old Battlestar, it was pretty blatant what they were doing. They had a good cast. Of course, Adama in the original was Lauren Green from Bonanza. And he did a good job. Richard Hatch played Apollo. And he's the only, and I did a lot of research. I went looked at like cast members who were just barely on the show. Sorry for the focus problem here. Whenever I wave my hand around the camera, that's trouble. But I looked back. One of the reasons you didn't have a lot of cast members do both shows is the time period there, because you're talking 1978, you're talking 27 years between the original show and the 2005 show. So the only people you could have would have been the real young people, because most of the older people were no longer around by the 2005 show, or if they were, they weren't capable of doing something like that. Let's see, what did you have here? You had Dirk Benedict, of course, from the A-Team fame. And, the A-Team also had the guy that played Barkley. I forget his name offhand. Slips me right now. But the guy that played Barkley was on the A-Team also. You had Herbert Jefferson Jr. played Boomer. John Kalikos, who played Klingon in Star Trek, he played Baltar. We had Maren Jensen playing Lieutenant Athena, Lorette Sprang. See, some of these did not have counterparts in the new series. I don't believe they had Athena. I'm almost positive they didn't have Cassiopeia. Boxy they had. Now, the original Boxy in 78, it was Noah Hathaway who played the kid in The Never-Ending Story. One was the main character in The Never-Ending Story. Let's see, Jolly, who was played by Tony Schwartz. He was kind of what's the main engineering guy. I'm bad with names. If I don't have them written down like I do here, I lose track of the actors' names in these shows. Even on the 2005 show, it'll come back to me. You watch here in about 10 minutes. Oh, it was so-and-so. And Colonel Ty was played by Terry Carter. Now, that was kind of unusual because you had two black characters. One they switched to an Asian girl. That was Boomer. And then Colonel Ty, they switched from a black actor to a white actor. I'm trying to think of any of them that they switched from a white actor to a black actor. I don't recall any, but I'm sure there probably was one or two. Baltar, they certainly changed Baltar. He was completely different, not race-wise, but completely different. Now, there has been in the works a movie to be made based on the 2005 series. I have read so many different directors and showrunners and producers, and we're going to be involved in this thing. I don't think it's going to happen. There was a movie. There was Blood and Chrome. Then there was The Plan, and that was terrible. I don't know if you saw it. It was basically a Cylon movie, and it was all about what the supposed plan was. And it just was. To be honest with you, it wasn't worth watching. I'm sorry I watched it. I've watched it once, and I'm not going to watch it again. I just didn't care for it. Blood and Chrome was okay. Now, it was kind of unusual. Blood and Chrome was done after all the sets and everything were destroyed. So there were no sets. So everything you see in Blood and Chrome is CGI. everything. They may have built a couple of Vipers. That's hard to do when you have to interact with it to make that CGI. But even now, they're getting to where they can do that with makeup, where the actor doesn't have to wear makeup. I was watching one that were talking about the Planet of the Apes, and that all of the makeup in Planet of the Apes, in this 3 of them, I think it was, Planet of the Apes films, were all CGI. I don't know how they do that, but that must be pretty interesting. I've noticed on Facebook that there's a lot of people discussing the idea of building their own LED stage to film things. If you ever have that idea, before you spend any money, if you have Disney Plus, check out the Disney Gallery Season 1. And I forget which episode it was. I think it was like 3 or 4, where they go into how those LED stages work. And they cost millions of dollars. It's not just the LED screen. I mean, those are built, a whole bunch of them, and the one they use on The Mandalorian is actually circular. It goes all the way around them, and it's like 50 feet in diameter. And whatever area they're supposed to be in, if they're supposed to be in the sand, they throw sand all over the floor, so it looks like, they're really there. And it's amazing, the stuff that they could do on this thing. They have cameras with like little detectors on there, so they can tell where the camera that's photographing the scene is, and then it changes the perspective from where the camera is to what's being shown on the LED screen, so it shifts it around so it looks realistic. Because, as you move, maybe there's a mountain in the way, and as you move, the relationship between this mountain and the one back in the distance changes. And if you don't have that set up, when you move, your eye's going to be able to tell something's wrong. It's going to be able to tell you're standing in front of a movie screen and not really at the place. So if you don't have that, it isn't going to work. So, before you go out and spend a bunch of money on doing LED screens, look into it, because there's more to it than just the screen. But like I say, it's amazing the stuff that they can do now. You watch Star Trek, and 90% of what you see on Star Trek is not there. It's just maybe the desk they're sitting at, and the floor, and a little pad for them to do something on, and that's all there is. All the rest of it is CGI. It's pretty amazing. So let's see. Go back to talking about Battlestar Galactica. The second series, the Ron Moore one, it was very well done. I started watching it with my daughter, but my daughter's one of those kind of people that likes to know what's going to happen. So she would get on the internet and look and find out what was going to happen. I don't know why people do that, because especially with Battlestar Galactica, the 2005 one, it ruins it for you. Because there's all sorts of things that come along that are very big surprises. That, like, really? I didn't expect that to happen. And if you know it's going to happen, well, it ruins it. It's no good at all. So if you're that kind of person, either don't watch Battlestar Galactica, because you're not going to like it, or just don't do it. Force yourself to not do that, because it's going to ruin it for you if you do that. Just let me tell you. Let's see, what was the other thing I was going to talk to you about is Gerry Anderson. There's a lot of you that may not know the name Gerry Anderson. He had a lot to do with special effects, especially in miniaturization of special effects. What he was probably the most famous for is Thunderbirds. And I'm sure you see, even if you haven't watched it, I'm sure you've heard of Thunderbirds. International Rescue Thunderbirds. And that was Gerry Anderson. He did a number of shows. He did Fireball XL5, Supercar, Stingray. They made fun of his stuff with that movie, Team America. Team America. That, I believe Gerry Anderson's wife had something remotely to do with the puppeting in that movie, because they had split up. I believe she had something to do with helping to get that looking right. And they actually didn't do a bad job. It was kind of funny. Was America, F yeah. Like I said, it was funny. And I'm sure if Gerry Anderson, I don't know if he was alive when that movie was made, but if he was, I'm sure he got a laugh at him. And even though it kind of made fun of what he did, I was a big fan of Supercar growing up. Look at that. It's really not bad, especially the miniatures. For the time period and budget he had, that was really pretty well done. You look at some, I know that some of his people had something to do with the Death Star. Some of his people worked on miniatures for the Death Star in Star Wars. I read that before. I don't know how publicized it was, but I know for a fact that occurred. There were some people that had some involvement in the Death Star. So, and also one of the people that worked on the Death Star did some of the miniatures for the Godzilla movies. So, and those were really pretty good. If you watch those old Godzilla movies, the cities as Godzilla's walking through the city, that was some pretty good miniature work. I'm getting tired of that. Let me put something else behind me. Getting tired of looking at that. That's it. What else have I got here? There we go. Be the hallway. Clear me a hole, Starbuck. Or no, it was Starbuck that said that. She was jogging down the corridor. What do you hear, Starbuck? Nothing but the rain. That was a good show. I don't know how many of you will watch that. I know a lot of people that got started watching this show are mainly fans of the old stuff, the Dark Shadows and so forth. But I'll tell you, if you watch Dark Shadows and put up with it, the stuff they have now is you're probably just overjoyed, because they had no budget. It was shot live. Can you imagine what Star Trek would look like if it was shot live? We watch all the bloopers they have where the doors don't open and Kirk's running down the hallway and slips. You imagine them trying to write that into the show? I mean, I've seen some of the episodes with Barnabas Collins where he's holding the phone up to his ear and the phone rings. And I don't remember what they said to get, around that. But, that's the kind of thing that happened back then. And, they couldn't do another take. They had a limited amount of time. There was another live show coming up right after their show. So they couldn't run over. So whatever they did, it was, whatever happened, happened. And that was the show. So, it's a lot different with what they have now and what they used to have. It's just a lot different. I don't know. I liked the models. I liked them building the models. I liked the puppetry with like Yoda and E.T. And none of that stuff happens anymore. Yeah, I mean, once in a while. I don't know how many of you have seen Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. That is a show to watch. I tell you right now, that's one of the best things I have seen in many years. It is well worth watching. 3Ws, well worth watching. It's better than Disney's Pinocchio. It's certainly different, but I think it's better than Disney's Pinocchio because Disney's was just a cartoon. But I mean, I know there's a lot of work to a cartoon, believe me. But the stop action stuff in Pinocchio with Del Toro, if you can, get online and watch. There's a video that shows several scenes from the movie, and they show in fast motion them coming in and moving the puppet, whatever they call them, maquette, I think they call it. They moved the maquette in order to film the stop action. So you actually can see the person coming in and moving it. And it's real quick. So because the action occurs just about as fast as it does in the movie, maybe just a little slow enough to where you can see the person come in and move it. And that's pretty neat. So if you get a chance, look that up. I believe they have it on YouTube. I don't know if that was shot with our cameras. I work for a company that makes cameras. I work for a company called Red Digital Cinema. And a lot of the Marvel films, Queen's Gambit on Netflix was shot with our camera. There's a lot of stuff, especially on Netflix, that's shot with our cameras. And I don't recall, Del Toro's done a lot of work with our cameras, but I'm not positive that Pinocchio was shot with them or not. But even if not, it's an excellent film, well worth watching. 3Ws again, well worth watching. So let's see. I think that I've just about run out of stuff to say. Let's see here. Talking about Gerry Anderson. I got a couple more things to say about that. He did a show called a live action show towards one of the last things that I saw that he did. It was called Space Precinct. And that was pretty good. You get a chance, watch that if you can find it. A lot of these things are really hard to find. A lot of these streaming services, I think we're going to see some of these streaming services fall by the wayside here pretty quick. Because Amazon Prime, They are, this last update they did for Amazon Prime, it just does not hardly work. They used to have a thing where you could click up at the top. It said free to me, where it wouldn't show you all of the stuff that you had to pay for. Well, they got rid of that. So now when you go through the stuff, 3/4 of the stuff that's up there, you've got to pay to watch. Even though it's on Amazon Prime, you have to pay to watch it. Now, I don't care for that. I pay for Amazon Prime. I didn't pay for that so I could then pay for something else. I don't mind. The one service where you have to watch commercials that I don't really mind that much is Freebie. Because Freebie shows one 30-second commercial. And I think they have 2 during the run of the show and then 1 in between each episode. And it's not bad. They're not, for a while, they were showing these drug commercials, and they seem to have stopped doing that. And they're mainly showing stuff for other video content. And I don't mind that so much because sometimes it'll turn me on to a show that I wouldn't even have thought of watching. But sometimes I start watching some of these shows. I'm sure you're the same way. When you go through the stuff and you're looking for something new to watch, and you say, oh, I must have watched that already because I see I watched a half an episode and stopped. And there's a few of them where I'll watch 1 or 2 episodes and then it just, nah. Like on The Rig. That's one. I started watching that and I just couldn't see it going anywhere. So I stopped watching that. My daughter got involved watching that 1899, but they made it pretty obvious what was going on when the girl accidentally said 1999 at the beginning of the movie. So you knew it was some kind of time travel thing. So that kind of spoiled it. So anyway. Let's see here. Let's see. Back to Battlestar. Oh, something they were talking about the other day was Babylon 5. Now, I don't know how many of you have watched Babylon 5, but that was an excellent show, especially for the story and mostly the acting. The special effects, it's become a lot easier to watch of late because they remastered it, which really helped because the original special effects of the first couple of years were done on the old Amiga computers, which was the beginning of CGI. That's where it first started, was on the Amiga computer. It was kind of like a Commodore 64, about on the same level as a Commodore 64, but it had a unique ability to address each pixel, so they could do things with that you couldn't do with a lot of computers. And it was really pretty amazing for its time. And the special effects on Battlestar were pretty amazing for its time. We're talking mid-90s here. But before they remastered it, I didn't recommend trying to watch it on a big screen because watching it on a big screen, it didn't come across real well. It was better watching it on an iPad. But now that they've remastered it, I'm going to have to try it back on my 65-inch and see how it looks. But the acting is excellent. Unfortunately, we've lost about half the actors on the show, which is really surprising for a show from the mid-90s. Most of the time, you'll lose 1 or 2 of the older actors, but a lot of the younger actors off the show are gone. We still have Bruce Boxleitner, but we've lost Mira Fallon, Richard Biggs. They're both gone. They were young people. Lost Andreas Katsoulis, who also played Ambassador Tomalak, Admiral Tomalak on Star Trek. And he played several other characters, but Tomalak's probably what he's best known for. Excellent actor. He was the one-armed man in the Harrison Ford, The Fugitive movie. Peter Jurassic's still around. But Stephen Furst is gone. Jeff Conaway is gone. Tim Choate, that played Zathras, he's gone. He died in a car accident, which about a month after I met him at one of the conventions, he passed away. But that happens. We all go sooner or later. It's an excellent show. If you're into sci-fi and you're looking for something to watch, I highly recommend that. I recommend Babylon 5, Red Dwarf. Red Dwarf. That is an excellent show. Just turn the other way with the special effects. It's like most British science fiction. The special effects are, especially season 1 of Red Dwarf, it gets better in later seasons. They came up with some more money, obviously, for them. But it's an excellent story. You'll watch it and say, hey, that's pretty clever. But it's really worth watching. If you like Doctor Who, you'd probably like Red Dwarf. Most of the British sci-fi has some similarity to it. Let's see. Star Hunter. With Michael Pare. That's a Canadian show. That's pretty good. I think it's Star Hunter. I always forget that. I always confuse that one with Adventures in the Forbidden Zone. Let me take a look real quick. Pardon me for looking away from the screen. Star Hunter. Yep. That was Michael Pare. That was a good show. It was Canadian. When you watch it, if you do, and you have children and you're concerned with this, just realize it's Canadian TV. There will be the required 30-second nude scene. All Canadian shows do that. It's like British TV. They like to flash some nudity. It's not anything, terrible, but if it concerns you, just be aware that it's there. And but it's an excellent show. Special effects are pretty good. I think it ran on for a couple of years, then it paused for like 5 years, and they brought it back for 6 months. Then it went away again. So you can find them where I bought mine. Believe it or not, was at the 99-cent store. They had a big bin of DVDs, and they had season 1, 2, and 3. But 3 was, like I say, a lot later. And they were $1 each. So I got all 3 seasons for $3. Can't beat that. Don't have that anymore. The 99-cent store doesn't exist anymore. Not that way. Now it'd be like $4.99. So if you don't mind paying $4.99, even $4.99, I wouldn't be mad. But I bought quite a bit of stuff there. That way. But let's see. The other movie I was trying to think of was Adventures in the Forbidden Zone with Peter Strauss. That was an excellent movie. It was Molly Ringwald's first film. And it had Michael Ironsides playing the overdog. So that's a good movie to watch. See, it's good to watch this thing and listen to me because I'm old and I've seen a lot of these old sci-fi films. Some of them you would never watch based on the name of the film. Like another good one. It's really a good one. It's called The Day of the Triffids. Triffids. And it is, I've seen it called The Night of the Triffids, and I've seen it called The Day of the Triffids. You want to watch it on DVD or streaming because if you watch it on TV, they cut it to pieces and it's not nearly as good. I don't want to tell you the details, but it's really a good film. It's I believe it's British. It's either British or Canadian, and you have that level of special effects. But it's really a good story. It's a good premise. I forget who wrote the story, but it was written by a well-known sci-fi author, and it's definitely worth watching. You know, a movie that they should have made, but they never did. A short story written by Frederick Pohl, Pohl, and it was written quite a while back, and it's called The Midas Touch, and it reminds me of what's going on now with all the AI stuff. This is a story about how robots have taken over all manufacturing. And all the people do is you're required to wear out a certain amount of stuff so that there is a requirement to make more. And you will get into trouble if you don't. And so it's like you have to get up, you work 23 hours a day in order to wear out enough pants and wear out enough shoes and in order to meet your quota of things that you wear out. So this guy figures out that he can take a robot, program the robot to wear things out, and he won't have to do it. But then it like creates this vicious cycle where the robots are wearing stuff out faster than you know too fast, and the production has to make it faster, and it just turns out to be bad. But it's called The Midas Touch. So you get a chance to read that. It's, like I say, it's very much in line with what's going on with all this AI stuff. I'll tell you, I don't like the way this is headed. So many people are just embracing this AI stuff. Watch the old Terminator movies. The government tempted fate when they established the new network that's going to control all the drones out there, and they named it Skynet. Like I said, there's something called tempting fate, and that's tempting fate. I don't think that was a good idea. I don't know what you think, but I don't think that was such a swell idea. Melanie was supposed to come in and join us, but I guess she is feeling worse than she was because I think she would have joined us by now. We've only got 15 minutes left. I'm going to go ahead and hang on here and fulfill the complete hour. Melanie and I have an idea for a business, and we'll probably bring in one or two of you guys that have been following us for a while and kind of run it by some of you because it involves AI. I'm not going to go into any detail because I don't want anybody to steal the idea. But I think it would work. So maybe Melody and I can retire and just do podcasts all the time. So you guys can get 7-day a week podcast. Do you really want 7 days a week of us? I hope so. Let's see. What else we got to talk about here? Sci-fi. Yeah, I love science fiction. I've watched science fiction since I got hooked on it about in the 6th grade. We had a reading book in my 6th grade class. And the last story in the book was a play that was a Czechoslovakian play called Rossum's Universal Robots, or RUR. And that was the very first use of the word robot, was in that play. And it was all about how these robots were taking care of this old man, and it turned out that he was the last human. And that these robots were, the offshoot of the human race. And I believe they have a baby or something. It's something like that, where it's basically them becoming our offspring. So it was, like I said, that's what got me hooked on science fiction. My favorite sci-fi author always has been is Arthur C. Clarke. Hang on for a second. Clarke did a book. Well, he is most famous for 2001: A Space Odyssey. Now, 2001: A Space Odyssey is not what it was originally called. Originally, it was called The Sentinel. And what The Sentinel was it was a short story. These people go to the moon and they dig up this obelisk. Sound familiar? On the moon. Oh, hang on. I have a bunch of comments. Oh, thank you, Kim. Dirk Benedict was in the original, but not in the sequel. The one that was in both series was Richard Hatch. He played Apollo in the original, and he played Tom Zarek, who was like a revolutionary in the sequel. I got to meet him once at a convention. He passed on early in the 2000s, I believe. But he was a real nice guy. He signed a comic book. He signed a Battlestar Galactica comic book for me. And like I say, happy Easter, Kim. So Kim was messaging me, and I didn't notice it until just now. But anyway, they dig up the monolith, and they try to bust it open. It was sending a signal. Once they bust it open, it stops sending the signal. And these guys on the moon, which is where this monolith is, they realize that the monolith is probably sent a signal to somebody by the fact that it stopped sending a signal, and that we're probably going to get visitors. And, what kind of visitors are we going to get? And that's the story that became 2001: A Space Odyssey. And now I don't consider that his best work. I think Arthur C. Clarke's best work was Childhood's End. He foretold the use of satellites before Telstar or, before they were thought of. He thought of them. And I believe he's the one that thought of these orbital elevators that they're talking about building now. So if they build that, they'll have him to thank for that too. He had his own island in, I think it was Sri Lanka, if I recall. And he lived to be a ripe old age. He's gone now, but like most of the real good science fiction authors are gone. I'll tell you, there's some really good ones that a lot of people just haven't ever read. You know, Frederick Pohl, like I talked about earlier, Frederick Brown, excellent author. He did Martians Go Home. You should, and he did, I believe, What Mad Universe. Both of those, if you get a chance, they're old, but if you get a chance to read them, they're well worth reading. Like I said, What Mad Universe is one, and Martians Go Home. Martians Go Home is a very ingenious story. And it makes you wonder what's going on with today's authors, because I don't see anything unique and thought-provoking like those two shows, especially What Mad Universe. That he had to really think about that one. But there's some old movies like Naked Lunch. There's another one to watch. You get a chance, watch Naked Lunch. It's very unique. I don't want to tell you about it because I don't want to spoil it for you, but let's just say you won't have seen anything like it. It's very much different. But I'm glad I got a chance to tell people about this stuff, because this stuff I've enjoyed all my life. Science fiction. Like I say, I've been into sci-fi, UFOs. My sister and I saw UFOs when we were 15, 16. We used to lay out in the backyard at our house. We used to live out in the desert. And we had a couple of lounge chairs out there. And we had two pretty high-powered sets of binoculars that my grandfather gave us. And we used to lay in the backyard and look up at the sky with these binoculars. So one night we're laying out there and we see these two triangles flying overhead. And the only way you could see them is they blocked out the stars as they went over. And they were pretty good size. So we looked at that. By the time we went in the house and got our mom, they were gone. But we both remember seeing them. Now, we lived very close to an Air Force base. We lived near what was called George Air Force Base in Victorville. So it's possible this was some kind of military vehicle. Oh, I thought I had something on my elbow. It's sometimes with the green screen, if you get your arm in the wrong spot, so there, you get your arm in the wrong spot. I've got a light over here to my side. Now it probably won't do it. Yeah. If the light shines on it, it has a problem with the background. But like I say, all gone. But so these could very possibly have been military jets. So it may not have been a UFO, but it may have been a UFO. You never know. And like I say, sci-fi, I watched Star Trek from 1966 on. That was Lost in Space. I liked it, the first season of Lost in Space. Then it got kind of stupid. The vegetable people and, I wasn't a dumb kid. So once I watched a few minutes of these vegetable people, I'm like, come on, there's no vegetable people. So they just don't have any respect for the intelligence of kids. Because this obviously was aimed at kids, but come on. That's why we liked Star Trek, because there was very little there were a few episodes of Star Trek that were kind of stupid. Spock, even Spock's brain was not completely out of the realm of possibility. You had that one where that guy singing the hippie songs. That kind of. But you have to remember, during that time period, that music was not that far out of what was being done at the time. So it's possible. But that's why I like that show. That's why I like The Outer Limits, Twilight Zone, because most of that had a basis in hard fact enough to where it was viable. It was something you could say, okay, that could possibly be. Now, who could sit there and say, my carrots could come and talk to me? And what was a shame is, the guy that played the carrot is the one that was selling the tribbles on Star Trek. That poor guy. Can you imagine going from doing that to being a carrot? And then I forget Jonathan Harris, what they had him playing. That guy was a good actor. I met him and Billy Mooney at one of the conventions. It was one of Jonathan Harris's last conventions that he did. And it was nice talking to him. He was a nice man. And they had him, Billy Mooney. The actor that played Major West wasn't there, but everybody else was there. Of course, Guy Williams had passed on many years earlier. I did have a autographed picture. Guy Williams didn't autograph the picture, but I had a separate autograph of Guy Williams on a index card that I had mounted with the picture of the cast. And I think I got $1,000 for that. His Guy Williams autograph is pretty rare. All right, what do we got here? About a minute and 45 seconds to go. So next week, we're going to have, Carolyn Wilmar, who is the contest queen. She's very interesting. You get a chance. She has a podcast called With the Contest Queen. She has a podcast. Get on there. There's an episode she does about the Pepsi Where's My Jet documentary that's on Netflix. And that's very interesting. I forget the gentleman she's on there with. Block, I think is his last name. But that's very, very worthwhile watching. And hopefully we will have Melody with us next week. I hope so, because I'm no good at interviews. Melody's the interview person. So anyway, we're going to have Carolyn Wilmar on with us next week. And the contest queen. So make sure you tune in for that one, because she's going to be a good guest. I can tell that already. So you guys all take it easy. And let me get all my stuff back up on the screen here. And I will see you next week. Happy Easter.